In this video, I am going to try to explain the setup that we use in Switzerland to copy translations between Weblate projects. So to get translations that are, for example, provided officially by OpenSocial or that other NROs have done to get these translations into our Greenpeace Switzerland Weblate project. I am going to try to quite briefly explain how this setup works, and then to also show how it would be, like how you could adopt this setup for yourself. Okay, so basically what we want to do is we have, say, in Greenpeace Germany, the language German, which has been translated quite well with many components. And yeah, you can see here, so there's a number of translations available in Greenpeace Germany. And then we have our own in Switzerland, our own Greenpeace Switzerland Weblate project, in which we also have the language German, but it's our own version of the language German, which is called here German Switzerland. And which, I mean, at this point, it's the same number of translations because we've been copying from Germany, but basically the idea is that we would here have less translations that are already present in the other project. And so we want to get those missing translations over into our project. To do this, we use the Weblate API. There's a Weblate API that is accessible here in your user settings. It's you find all the information how you can get API access. It's very straightforward. You just need this API root URL and then a personal API key to authenticate. That's it. So that's the basics. And then the way we do it is actually through two GitHub repositories. The reason why we're using two separate ones is that one, this one here called weblatetools really just contains like the tools, the functions and the code that is just needed in general to do any kind of copying between Weblate projects, or even just to download translations from a Weblate project and to upload them again. And then we have this other repository here, which is called Greenpeace Switzerland, Greenwire, Weblate copy, which really specifies all the things that are particular to our Swiss case. So here we define actually our own API key. We say which projects we want to copy from. We say which languages we want to copy from. We say that it is the Greenpeace Switzerland project that we want to copy into, and all these things. So these two things are separated. And yes, I am mostly going to talk about the Swiss implementation, because if you want to just adopt this, you don't even need to worry really about what happens behind the scenes with this Weblate tools code. Just very briefly, this Weblate tools, it's written in R, in the R language, and it is structured. It's provided as basically it's an R package. So you can just install this in R like you would any other R package through this command here. And if you install this, like also here, you will find an example that explains a bit how the code works. And also if you install it, all the package comes with documentation. So all the functions that you have available are documented within R. So I'm not going to talk about this more than that here. Now to how we use this in Switzerland. Basically, our goal is to not have to worry about this, to have this just run in the background and do its job. And basically once a week, this code just runs on a server and it copies all the translations that are available into our Greenpeace Switzerland project. So once a week, we get basically all the new translations that have been done by either the official OpenSocial translation service or the other NROs, in our case, Germany, France, and Italy. we automatically get those into our Greenpeace Switzerland project. The way we do this is through Github Actions. Now, I'm not technically well-versed enough to explain really what this is, but very simply, it's a way to have code automatically run on a server. And so in this project, what we need to do to make this work is basically we need to have two files, these two files here that are document or that are mentioned here under main components. This one file here is what actually configures the GitHub action. So that actually tells GitHub how to run this action behind the scenes. And the other file then is an R file, which then defines, like once this code runs, how exactly the translations are supposed to be copied. And I'm going to briefly show you both these two files. First, the file for the GitHub action. It's here in this GitHub workflows directory. And the file is, well, yes, contains a bunch of code and commands. But most of it, actually, if you just want to use the same approach, you actually don't have to look at. The only thing you really need to look at is up here, these two lines. And this is what specifies when this GitHub action is supposed to run. And you can find in the GitHub documentation, you'll find the information how this works exactly. And also when you edit the file here, it shows you basically what this means. What this means is that every Monday at 8 p.m., this GitHub action that is specified here runs. So that's it. So if you are happy with this, with having it run at 8 p.m. every Monday, then you don't even need to change this file. Then you can just leave it like this. More interesting is the other part, is this copy.r file, because here we really tell the program which projects, which Weblate projects you want to work with. And the way this works is basically there's a setup command that just defines some basic parameters. And then there are the commands, well, then there are the commands that that specify how to actually copy the translations. And then there is also here this command, which basically defines for which components the translations are getting copied. I will explain this at the end. It's important, but relatively trivial. So in the setup, you don't actually have to change much because the base URL to access the API is going to be the same for you. It's just the one. Well, it's actually not the full one here. So it's without this API part. It's just the translate.getopenSocial.com. Then this token, that is the personal API key that you have here. But you don't actually have to specify it here because this repository is actually also public so that you can also see it, and GitHub has a function where you can provide like secrets like this. How do you say this, as a system variable? I don't know exactly, but basically you can provide it in a secure way. I will also show you this in the end. Then that is actually here the one thing that you really have to change. You have to say which project do you want to copy to. So here you have to specify your own Weblate project name. And so this is, you find this here. Let me see, if you look here at the projects, and if you look at the URLs of the projects, you can see what the name is of the project. For France, you can see it's GPFR. And for Switzerland, you can see it's GPCH. So this is basically the text that you need to get and that you need to specify here. to make this work. The rest you can leave unchanged. Then for how to copy, you can see here in this file that we are copying, like I said. So first we are copying from Open Social German. Then we are copying from the official Open Social French. Then we are copying German from Germany, French from France, and Italian from Italy. This code here, this is just for getting nice logs. You can ignore this. It doesn't really serve any functional purpose. This is all that really matters. This command says how to, for one language, copy the translations. And you need to specify a few things here. First of all, you need to specify which languages we are working with. And you need to specify which project you want to get the existing translations from. So basically you are saying, well, we already defined earlier in setup that we are copying to Greenpeace Switzerland. Now you have to say, well, which language within Greenpeace Switzerland are we copying to? And this, again, the name of this language, like this internal name of the language, you find it by looking at the URL. So here you can see for the language German Switzerland, this like small name is DE_CH. And so that's what you have to provide here. Then you need to say which project you want to copy from. This you find in the same way as you found the name of Greenpeace Switzerland. In the case of the official translations by Open Social, you need to, this is the name, Open-Social. And then you also specify which language you want to copy from. And for the official languages, yes, it's straightforward. It's just this kind of two-letter abbreviation. And then if you want, you can specify here like some replacements, but this is completely optional. You can also just delete this code. You don't need it. And then the download method, that is important, actually. Well, actually, you should just always use download method public. That's the easiest way to do it. And then there's the last piece here, which is this components, which we are also defining here. Basically, the way it works is that you cannot, like these translations, the translations, the way you download them is in translation files, but you cannot download like one big translation file for an entire language version within Weblate. You have to download a translation file for each component separately. As you can see in one project, there's a number of components, right? There's a whole bunch of them. And for each of those components separately, you need to copy all the files. Like for each component, there's one translation file that you have to download and then upload again in your own component. And of course, with this Weblate tool package here, it's possible to automate this, so you don't have to write so much code for each component. There is one command that basically gives you a list of all components that are present in a given Weblate project. And so basically here, what you just do, you download the list of all the components in your own project. It's the easiest way. You just pick your own project that you have, and then you just get the list of all the components. And this list then is what you provide down here in the copy translations function call. So the only thing you have to change here basically is just you put here the name of your own project. But it doesn't really matter so much because I think we pretty much all have the same components in our projects anyways, but just ideally you just put the name of your own project here. And then that's how that works behind the scenes, but you don't really have to worry about it. Yeah, and that's it on a very high level way. So you have to do a little bit of setup here, which is basically, if you're going with this approach, you just need to change the project that you want to write to. And then you need to here change like the languages and the project that you are getting it from. And you need to, if you want to here specify some like how the translation files should be processed before pre-uploading. And you have to specify where you want to get the components from. Okay, so I feel like I went maybe already a bit more into detail than I was trying to go. And I understand maybe it might also not fully make sense what the whole code does. Of course, really, if you want to do the same thing, adopt this approach, I'm very happy to explain it in more detail to you. Okay, so that was kind of the overview. Now I am going to try and see if I can show you how you would, like the steps that you would really have to do to get this working for your own MRO. Basically, what you do need to have a GitHub account, so you can't do it without. And then, if you have a GitHub account, what you can do is you can just basically copy this project here that specifies all really the details of how to copy. You can just copy this into your own account and then there make the changes that you want to make. And the way to do this is to fork this project, basically. So you just go here, you click fork, and then you see you get a little screen here where you can specify some details for how to create this fork. What you have to do is you have to say basically who the owner is of this fork. In your case, most likely, well, depending if whether you're new to GitHub or not, but basically here you can specify who the owner is going to be, and then you can give it a name. So here, I don't know, I'm just going to make an example now. I'm going to pretend that I am Greenpeace France, okay? So here I'm just going to change the name. This is completely up to you. You can also completely rename it however you want. And then you click create fork. And so now you see you are in this new project here. See, Kaiser, this is my personal account. I'm just using this here to show you, which we forked from the original project. And now basically all you have to do is you have to change the files that I was telling you about before. So first, let's say you don't want this to run on Mondays at 8 p.m. like I said, but at a different time. So instead of at 8 p.m., you want to run this at, I don't know, 10 a.m. So now it runs on Mondays at 10 a.m. Or we could also say, yeah, no, let's leave it like this. So now it just runs at a different time, right? And then once you've made the change, you just have to here go to start commit. Then you can, so commit is basically in GitHub terms how to save a change to a file. Very simplified. If you want, you can here give a brief name describing what you changed. So you could say change run time to 10 a.m. And then you just click commit changes. And so from now on, this GitHub action will run every Monday at 10 a.m. And that's all we have to do here. Then the more interesting part is this copy R file. Once again, we go here onto edit. And now actually we are lucky, we are Greenpeace France. So we can simplify this quite a bit. So the first thing we have to do is here in this setup step, we need to change this now. We need to say that we want to upload translations to Greenpeace France. Then we are going to also say, because we are working with Greenpeace France, we also want to get the list of components from Greenpeace France. Then we don't need to change anything here. And now, because we are Greenpeace France, actually, we don't want to copy so much stuff. We actually only want to copy the official French translations into our Greenpeace France. Of course, we could also say, well, we want to copy the official ones and also the one from Greenpeace Switzerland, for example, but we're going to make it very simple. So we're just going to say, we want to, so once again, this here is optional. This is just for nice locks. It doesn't matter. No, actually, yes, you can delete this because it's anyways the only thing we do. So we make it as simple as possible. And so now we are saying we are copying to our own French. And this we can, if we go here to the Greenpeace France project and languages, then we see that the Greenpeace France French is just called FR. So here we just change the to language to FR. We are getting the official translation from open source, so this stays the same. And of course, we want to copy from French and not from German. So we are going to copy from the open social French into the French that we have in the Greenpeace France project. For now, to make it simple, we are not going to do any kind of processing here of the translation files. So we can remove these lines. And then that's it, basically. Also, as a side note, you don't have to worry really too much about making a mistake here and messing up your translations, because this code, it will only ever upload translations where you haven't already made translations. So if your own project, you have translated some strings and the official open social translation is different, your translations that you have made already are never going to be overwritten. This will always be respected. So only if there are strings that you have not translated yet, but open social has, then you will get them. So this looks good. Now down here, this is some like kind of fancy stuff that just helps a bit with like logs and with having a nice overview of what these GitHub Actions do. I'm not going to explain this here, but basically now we are only copying French, right? So we're going to call this here new FR. And we're going to reduce these 5 parts here that we had before from Greenpeace Switzerland just to this this one here. And that's it. So yeah, basically these are all the changes that we had to make. And now we can once again commit the changes to these files, to this file. So I'm going to explain set up for, and we're going to commit these changes. And now there is one last thing missing. Which is the authentication with the Weblate API. Because in order to access access the translations in Weblate, we need to provide authentication. This is not, these translations are not just public, or at least uploading the translations is not possible just for anyone, right? So the way this works is you have to go into your Weblate account here, into the account settings. You go to API access, and then you see here your personal API key. And basically this you copy. Ideally, actually, before you copy it, click regenerate once, because there was an update to Weblate a while ago that changed this a bit, and ideally you would regenerate it first. And then you get a new one, you copy this one, And then within GitHub, within your new GitHub repository here, you go to settings, and secrets, and then secrets for actions. And okay, so now actually I have to go back and check. Sorry, I forgot this. We go into the code again, and we look here in the workflow file. Basically, what we do here is we give GitHub this API key to store it in a trusted place, and to store it in a place where no one else can access this. And then the GitHub action is able to access it there. And here we can see, basically here we are telling the GitHub action to get the Weblate personal access token from this secrets, the one that has this name here, that has this name Weblate_PAT. So that's the name we need to give it in the settings here. So we go back to settings, secrets, actions, and now we make a new repository secret, and we call it Weblate_PAT. And then we paste here this key that we copied before. And we add this secret. And that's it, basically. Now you're up and running. So now, once a week on Mondays at 10 a.m., this code will run in the background, and it will copy the official French translations into the Greenpeace France translations. That's it. Once again, if you want to know more in depth how all this works, really feel free to ask me, and I'll be happy to explain. Thanks.